You are here with Sam of Taxman Provisions. Now here I've got this corned beef roast. This is a smaller roast. I got it at the local supermarket. It started out as a 4-pounder, and I slow roasted it using a rational oven. Well, actually, it was a special preparation in the rational oven that I'd like to thank Natasha Daniels for walking me through. Because those are quite high-tech ovens that use a steaming method. So this looks pretty good, and it's about, I weighed it, it's probably lost about, it started out 4 pounds and came in at about 2.6, I believe. So the weight loss on this, or the shrinkage, wasn't as bad as it would have been in my home oven. What I'm doing here is I'm taking off the top fat layer of this as I carve this corned beef, this flat cut brisket. So again, thanks Natasha Daniels of Rational. I really appreciate it. Very helpful. Okay, so there's 2 pieces here. I took off the fat. And so you can just separate the larger piece from this top fattier cut. And so I'm just getting the remainder of this fat out of this brisket. All right, and once I finish carving this, I'm going to be making some delicious corned beef sandwiches. And so that's the focus of this video. However, I'm looking forward to getting on the next corned beef brisket that I get. I'll probably get a larger one. Now that I know 100% the best method to use with the rational oven. So I'm planning to use the smoker first, get a cold smoke on the brisket, per Natasha, and then I'm going to go into the soft cooking method, which is a boil steam method, and that's actually what this was, but we put it up at a higher heat, higher temperature, so it actually cooked fairly quickly, but as you can see, it's very tender still. So I'm pretty pleased with this, and I'm really looking forward to the next one. So I've removed the fat. You see the fat here. All right. And so I've got these 2 nice pieces of the brisket. And here's the grain. So you want to slice this across the grain. Of course, if you have a nice industrial commercial meat slicer, and just throw that into the meat slicer. You're gonna get a really nice consistent cut. But this is a homemade batch that we're going to be making. I'm going to be making sandwiches, and family and I are going to be having these for dinner. So we're just going with a nice homemade cut here. All right. So this is looking very nice and tender and juicy. So I really am pleased with this batch. Okay. So this over here. All right, you can see, look at that juiciness. Okay, and all right. So we're going against the grain again. And this is the main cut. This is the leaner cut here. So I'll get some of this as well. Okay, so this is firmer, but again, I will expect the next cook in the rational, and I fully use the soft cook method at the lower temperature is going to be a nice, it's going to be a nice cook. All right, so the two sandwiches I'm going to show you today are, just happen to be my two favorite corned beef sandwiches. The first is a traditional Reuben sandwich, which was probably my first introduction to a corned beef sandwich. And so, from childhood, it was probably my favorite corned beef sandwich, the Reuben. And also the reason why I discovered a deli in Ann Arbor, Michigan that made awesome corned beef sandwiches and kind of was the original, inspiration for all my, I guess, my love for corned beef and a nice deli sandwich. Speaking of Ann Arbor, Michigan, I'd like to shout out to my niece, Megan Matichek, who started actually at Ann Arbor, Michigan as a freshman this year. So they have kind of like a hybrid of stay-at-home classes, but also on campus, with the safety procedures in place. So I'm really excited for you, Megan. Moved into your apartment and you've started at Michigan this week. So I hope you have a great, 4 years of undergrad at Michigan, or maybe more with grad school. So definitely go blue, and I love you, Megan. All right, so here's the corned beef. Let me just rinse my hands. All right, so as I mentioned, I'm going to be making Reuben sandwich. Also going to be making a very simple sandwich with tomatoes and onions and some horseradish and mayonnaise. Very simple, but it's actually become my most favorite corned beef sandwich. And it was made at the deli that I worked at in Ann Arbor, and it's just delicious. So I'm going to show you both of those. All right, so let's dive into this. All right, I'm going to start with the Reubens. Okay, so for the Reuben sandwich, got some Jewish rye bread. They have a Jewish rye, they have a Russian rye, and I learned today the difference between a Jewish rye and a Russian rye. Apparently, a Russian rye has sourdough starters in the bread, so it'll be a little bit more tangy. Whereas the Jewish rye, which I got here, has caraway seeds, which I believe you're probably familiar with. So I got some Jewish rye here. Now, for the traditional Reuben sandwich, you gotta get the Swiss cheese, and I've got the Swiss cheese on both sides of this bread. And I'm going to fire up these fry pans. Got 2 fry pans here, and I put some butter in. You can use butter, you can use vegetable oil, but you want some sort of frying element there. So get those nice and hot. Let the butter melt. All right, so got the rye with the Swiss cheese. Also got some sauerkraut. So again, this is a traditional Reuben sandwich, and I keep saying traditional because there are variations. And at the deli I worked at in Ann Arbor, one of the variations was instead of sauerkraut, it used coleslaw, just like a standard coleslaw, and so that had a nice creamy tang to it. So it's kind of like a non-traditional Reuben sandwich. But both of those, come with the fried bread and the melted cheese. Incidentally, this technique I'm going to show you, it's the same technique I use for grilled cheese sandwiches. Essentially, I am making grilled cheese sandwiches with Swiss cheese. It's just that I'm going to be packaging them with the corned beef and the sauerkraut and the Russian dressing, which is kind of like the full ingredients for a Reuben sandwich. All right, so the butter's gotten nice and melty here. All right. So let me start adding in the bread with the Swiss cheese. Now these are just conventional large fry pan, so I'm going to be putting 3 in each because there isn't much space in here. You know, if you're in a commercial space with a flat top, that makes it much easier. But this is the method you can use at home. All right, so I got these down. Got these both down. Now what you want to do, it's got some water. You want to add some water. You have to be kind of, you know, be sparing with this water. If you put too much, you're going to end up with soggy bread. So I'm just going to put some water in the center of this and cover it up. So it's going to steam. That steam is going to start melting the Swiss cheese. It's kind of like, you know, it's kind of a faster method. Faster method because, you know, the trick with the grilled cheese sandwich is you want to get that nice crusty fry on the outside, but you don't want it to burn. If you burn it, it's ruined. So, you know, the challenge is to get it hot enough to get the cheese melted. And so the steam method, this water steam method is great for that. Okay, now while that's frying, let me show you this other sandwich. So this other sandwich that I have, okay, it's not even going to be toasted or fried bread. It's just going to have the standard untoasted bread, and I'm adding mayonnaise, all right? Adding mayonnaise to these. And just put some mayonnaise on one side of each sandwich. Got some nice horseradish. Now this is not, it's a creamy horseradish, but it's pure horseradish, meaning there isn't any mayonnaise, you know, any cream sauce in there. So that's what you want. So just get a nice layer of horseradish on the other piece of bread. Don't put it too thick because this is pretty spicy. You know, if you get it too thick and you get a bite of that, if you get the bite of that thick horseradish, your brain's going to be burning. Just like, you know, eating a sushi with a really big dab of the wasabi. Okay. All right. I am a big fan of horseradish. I like to have a little dab of horseradish on the side with my steaks as well, as a condiment. All right, now I got some nice, look at these, I got some nice heirloom tomatoes just from the supermarket. All right, and so, look at this beautiful slice. Let's just slice this up. So let me just throw this onto the sandwich. All right. Nice heirloom tomatoes here. Perfect season, summer season. Okay, now I'm adding some raw onions to this. Some raw onions. So obviously this will give you a nice breath, the sandwich. It's got some horseradish, it's got some onion. You know, probably don't want to put that COVID mask back on like right after you eat that sandwich. Okay, so let's check on these. Both of these are nice and, oh, good, look at that. So look at it. The cheese is perfectly melted, and look at that. Look at that, it's nice and crispy. Nice and crispy, but not burnt. If you do go too long on that cook, and if it's not overly burnt, you can salvage that if you need to by taking that, carefully holding the edges over a sink, and just taking the blade of a knife, you know, horizontal, perpendicular to the surface of the burnt bread, and just scrape that off. You can generally salvage that nice fried bread that way. Okay. All right, these are looking pretty sweet. All right. Okay. So I whipped up some Russian dressing for this Reuben. Now the Russian dressing is ketchup, mayonnaise, some relish, some finely chopped onions, some horseradish, a little bit of lemon juice, and some Worcestershire sauce. So that's a mouthful, Worcestershire sauce. So it's got a lot of tang to it. Let me put some of that sauce on each of these. All right. Okay. Reuben sandwich is a pretty messy sandwich, but it's delicious. It is delicious. Okay. All right. Now the horseradish. Oh, I'm sorry, the sauerkraut. Okay. Now, corned beef sandwiches, if you go to a East Side or New York style deli, which was like the one I worked at in Ann Arbor, the way I define that is they're kind of like supersized sandwiches. We'll use like a third a pound of the meat and probably a larger cut of the bread. So they are nice and thick sandwiches, and you're generally going to pay a premium for that extra meat. But those are delicious. These are not quite those. This is grocery store bought rye bread instead of getting a big loaf and slicing those. But this will still be nice. So I'm taking some of this corned beef. Laying this in there. I'll get some of the fatty and the lean, those two cuts that I had. And I'm probably putting less than a third of a pound on these. Maybe a quarter pound. Okay. And let's add this to this other sandwich. All right. Add it here. All right. This is going to be delicious. All right, so I've made 3 each of the Reuben and the horseradish tomato onion sandwich, and probably used about, I would say, maybe one and a half pounds, or 2/3. I'd say 2/3 of that corned beef that I just sliced up. All right, so let me show you. So take one of these. And take a Reuben. Make some room here. And just going to slice this. I'm just going to go down the center with these. All right. Now this is how I'm going. This is how I'm going to be serving this to my family. So I got half a Reuben and half of my horseradish heirloom tomato corned beef sandwich. So this is the moment of truth. Eat the Reuben. That's good. That is yummy. Now, try this other one with the horseradish and the heirloom tomatoes. That's so good. With that horseradish zing and those nice, flavorful, sweet heirloom tomatoes. All right, well, we are gonna enjoy these, so I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Take care, thanks.